everybody. Welcome to a new book club featuring a new book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Last book was a little too hard, so now we went to an easier book. And I'm Roy, and Steffi, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Steffi. And
Fun fact.
Fun fact about me? Fact?
Yeah, I guess so. We can do fun.
I have lots of furry friends. They're dogs. I guess furry
Oh.
friends that are people too. I don't know. As long as they don't have face, they're okay in my book.
Respect.
As long as they're potty trained.
That too.
Brett's turn.
My turn. I'm Brett. Fun fact, I play Fallout New Vegas.
That is fun.
That's
That's
yeah. Wait, so now I have to say a fun fact.
Yeah, you
about
started
myself.
this. You started the train of the
You
fun
started
fact.
it.
This is
You reap what you
awful.
sow.
I'm Blake. Hello. I also play Fallout New Vegas.
Yes.
And yeah. And I have long hair.
All right.
That is fun. Party in the back.
Hello, Joseph here. Fun fact about me, I fix computers when they cause issues.
That's not fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It can be fun.
It's fun for him.
It's like
Yeah, the
trying to
computers
it's trying to
need
solve
tissues for
it's trying to solve a puzzle. That's how I look at it.
Okay,
He be-
fair enough.
Just like he can be in there screaming at his computer, it's messing up, and usually I'm the one to fix it 9 times
That's
out
because
of
Bill Gates fucking broke it again.
10.
Bill Gates broke in, or he broke
Fucking
your
Bill
computer.
Gates.
He broke it again recently, like a month ago. He didn't update it, broke my computer. I had to reformat and everything. Okay, so does Steffi want to start us off? The first chapter?
Okay, I will.
Wait a
start
minute,
us
where
off.
was your fun fact?
My
Yeah.
Here's my fun
Oh,
fact.
yeah.
My fun fact is I am not fun. That's my fun fact.
Funny. All right, I'll start us off then. So, this book is a New York best time seller, right? Yep, it says over 2 million copies sold and probably never read. No, I'm just kidding.
What the-
Maybe the world would be a better place if more people read their books they bought. I did find this book very interesting. The format of reading it is you have to have like ADHD to read it properly, I think. Meaning that you probably just read a paragraph or two, think about it for like 2 hours, and then come back later. Or maybe this is a book that would be perfect if you're sitting on the toilet. You know how many times you go to the toilet a day?
True.
Mhm.
You're like, I'll just read a chapter every time
Just
I
don't
come
get
to
it
the.
dirty.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta read it before you wipe.
Roy, this is what you wanted. You
Um,
wanted a toilet book.
I found a toilet book. It's about herbs and gardening.
So basically, I think the first chapter, you know, from what I got of it, I mean, the title at the top of all the pages it's saying you are not your mind. So this is like a spiritual book, right? So it's kind of I think it's a book on trying to enlighten or liberate yourself. And I did find it pretty fascinating that it says that like thinking is a problem. It's like he refers to it like as an illness or a disease in some parts, and you're probably like, huh, I thought thinking about things was a good thing, but I think he meant obsessively thinking, and then thinking about what he said, thinking about thinking. It's like I do think a lot. And I tend to, I don't know if this is true for all people, but I do notice that I'll tend to think about the same things or a problem over and over again. And I think that is probably a problem that a lot of people have, because that's usually when you get angry, right? Like I had an incident where my neighbors egged my car, and I thought about it, and then it made me angry, and then I would think about it the next day, and then I'd get angry again. And I was kind of in this stupid thought loop of it, but the action had already happened. And in reality, I mean, it's just a fucking car. Shit's gonna happen to it, and it's not gonna last forever anyways. It already happened, and it was dealt with and like done, and there's nothing that happened to it again. So, but I was making myself suffer by keeping thinking about it and getting angry over and over again. So I did notice when I read that, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just be conscious about my thoughts. Like, hey, I already thought about that. Like, I already was angry about it. Like, let it go. So I kind of took it as like maybe I should just let things go. Or I always kind of thought that was like a passive way for people to take, like, oh, just, like you're just letting people trample all over you, and maybe I'm a little vengeful or spiteful or something. It's just, I think that there was another part where it talked about fear, and it was fear arises from like do you guys remember how he said it? It was about you're like a
It was
worry.
near the end, right?
Yeah, it was near the end, and it was
And it's
kind of
all, like,
basically.
Comes
Go
back
ahead.
to fear or something. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it was like fear and anger kind of come back to like it's a concern about like either your physical safety or your mental safety. It's the worry that someone's going to harm you. But
yeah, they're like reactive for like basically self-preservation.
yeah, and then like I kind of had a situation with like we live with other people, so these new people moved in and they like to leave the doors open, and I have dogs, so I kind of got into like hey, we have to keep the doors closed, and I was getting angry at this lady because she's just careless, and
Doesn't get it.
yeah, and I kind of thought she was a cunt and had all these kind of like altercations with her, but I realized that like it was coming from a place of fear because I was afraid
Right.
that she'd leave the door open and my dog run out on the street and then get hit by a car, and then I started to try to take a more proactive approach. I'm like, well, I train dogs, like why don't I just train the dogs not to go in the house? And I always manage the environment. It's not like they're alone in the yard anyways. So once I kind of just realized that it was my anger and like frustration with her was coming from a place of fear, I think this book helped me like let go of that a little bit because I did realize I was like, oh, I'm just like afraid of something that's gonna happen. Like that's what's making me anxious and angry. But then none of that happened. I'm like making myself suffer for no reason. Like none of that came to fruition. It's just a worry in my mind, and it was like an obsessive thought.
Yeah.
So I did find that quite liberating to read that and then realize like, okay, like I should probably just let those things go, and then try to be in the now, right? Because like those things didn't happen today. Today's a good day.
Mm-hmm.
The power of now.
Yeah.
The power of now, right?
Yeah.
You gotta quiet the mind and stop putting yourself, because you do, I think, make yourself suffer a lot by worrying. That worry that tends to happen. Maybe it happens more to women, not men.
No,
You guys will have to know.
I think just like guys are more like it's more subconscious. Like the thoughts aren't really like conscious level. You just kind of like get pissed off and stuff, and you're not really aware of like the thought process that's causing you to be angry. But I think women are like more aware of that stuff than guys are.
So would you say it probably manifests for women as like fear, and then in men like more as anger?
Yeah, I think default for men usually is anger. You just get pissed off about things.
Not why you guys punch shit.
Yeah.
Break shit.
And then women always think, you stupid fucker, now you gotta
Throw a
fix that.
controller through the wall. I've done that
Yeah.
before.
That's like the default
Water.
emotion. Is you just get pissed and you're like, I want to break shit.
No,
I'm
that's
like, you have to pay for that, right?
like when my computer gets fucked up. My default is I want to punch this fucking monitor, and I get up, like I walk away, like no, that's a $700 monitor. I can't do that.
Yeah, and I tell Joseph like it's not the computer's fault. It's Bill Gates' fault. He broke the computer. The computer didn't break itself.
There you go.
If you're gonna be
the
angry, be
computer
angry at
broke
Bill
itself on his hand or whatever.
Gates. it ran into my fist.
Yeah,
Yeah, the computer was built better, it would have happened.
Yeah.
exactly.
So I think that yeah, that's right, and I think that'll conclude my. Hopefully, it didn't sound like the book jibber jabbery, but
You
That's
sound
kinda what I got.
insane. Stop reading this book.
You're rambling about crazy. It's not even English. It's all Latin. How are you even reading this book? It's
hey,
never
we
been
should
translated
probably learn a little bit of Latin.
in English.
Yeah, next book we read is like has to be the
Has to be written in Latin, and we
like the original text of some religious document, like not
Oh,
translated to
God.
English. Like we have
It's-
to learn the
no, it's in
language or
stone.
whatever.
It's still carved in stone. We gotta go.
Yeah,
Oh.
we're reading tablets and
Yeah.
shit.
You
Guys,
guys,
field trip.
you might think this is funny, but my chiropractor, she told me that she has a friend that knows how to read some ancient language, and they're at a museum, and you know
Like
how they have all the,
Sumerian.
yeah, they have all the display pieces, and she's looking at it, and she's with her, and she's like, they put it upside down.
Yeah.
Yes,
Nobody
funny as
knows.
That is
Nobody
funny.
knows.
That's funny. That's great.
Oh, that's great.
There's like, is there ever like there's like a dick joke on the? Like,
You should go and tell him like, you got that hung up.
upside down.
I
was
think
there
you
when they
did
made
tell them,
that.
and they fixed it. Yeah, and they did fix it. They were probably like,
nice.
"Oh shit!" They probably felt so stupid.
You think the curator would? I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. Well, I mean, that's probably like literally the one and only person that probably told, noticed.
Yeah, definitely no one else would notice.
Yeah. All right, that concludes my turn. Woo.
Brett's turn.
My turn.
Brett's turn.
Talk crap about Bill
Gates and Alright. my
computer blue screens.
Your computer
So,
blue screen.
blue screen
Compared to the first book, this is like not the same at all. The first book had a lot of like scientific and examples attached to it. This is like the exact opposite. Kind of just needing the reader to look inwards. I thought this was like some sort of cult book when I first started reading. Because he
Yeah.
said like really technical, specific things like the seed of enlightenment, in your head. And use very weird language. Like people who are reaching a point where they become capable of breaking out of inherited collective mind patterns that have kept humans in bondage to suffering for eons. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Mhm.
I don't think many people say that, but
No one's ever said that to me.
That sounds like
No one's ever
very
said that to me.
what corporate media lawyers say,
yeah, it
in a
I
very
think
elegant
that
way.
contributed to like me not understanding what you were saying at first, which is kind of what the introduction warned about. He's like, you need to take some time to really think about what I'm saying, which I didn't.
It's your ego,
'Cause
Bray. Your ego's getting in the way.
It
of you
probably is my
understanding this
ego,
book.
but I learned more the further I got into the chapter. Like it became more clear what he was thinking about, and I understood. But I think his use of the language and choice of words made it confusing to begin with. I feel like he could have just put it into simpler terms before, but then you
Sure,
probably
but he
wouldn't have
is-
thought as much.
Isn't he Canadian?
Oh
Is he?
no!
I think that might explain that.
Maybe.
They'd be fancy.
This guy's not working with a full deck.
I thought there was some teaching moments in here. It was weird when he was saying like disconnect your mind and stuff, and then also be one with it. I think.
Yeah, I did notice that some
Yeah,
contradictory statements, right?
yeah, something like that. It just aided to the confusion, but the more I read, I think it's like, again, don't think about too much, which I don't know if that's his target audience, but it seemed just like if you're worrying too much, don't think about it. Take some time to like reflect, and I think that's a very specific group of people, not as much as he's saying. He's saying that everyone has thoughts and everyone does overthink and worry from time to time, which is true, but there's also people who don't think about their actions as much.
Right.
So I think he's just reaching out to one part of the people and answering their worries. He's not really affecting the other side, but maybe I just fall in that group and I think he's not talking to the other side. Again, maybe it's my ego, but
I guess, right? I mean, it would take, if you were talking about something, though, I mean, you would have to have an interest in it, right? So I guess maybe
Yeah.
that's why some things seem one-sided or not, like, broad enough to all audiences, because, I mean, if you don't like dogs and I'm talking about dogs, I mean, you're gonna be like, this bitch is just crazy.
Shut up about dogs.
Like, I like cats only!
Yeah.
Sorry, that's way
Other
too
than that,
simple. But,
um,
yeah.
other than that, it was easy to follow. He said some true things that I liked, some things I didn't entirely agree with, but I see where he's coming from, talking about emotions and how they affect you, which is true.
Yeah,
Overall, I
definitely.
like the first chapter. It gave a good, I think, introduction into what and how he's going to talk about stuff, and I'm interested to read more, but I wish it would be less confusing, which I don't think it will be.
I guess we'll find out next week, huh?
We'll find out if
Now
we learn
next
the
week.
power of now.
That's my turn.
Stay tuned.
Alright.
Blake's turn.
Is it my turn?
Blake's turn.
Okay, I took some notes while people were talking. And
He stole all of our notes. He's cheating.
yeah. Okay, so one thing I remembered, and maybe again, I thought it was, well, to repeat what some other people are saying, I thought it was kind of a little confusing. It's definitely like more dense than the last book. Like you sort of can unpack things, which I think is why he wants you to pause every couple paragraphs and reflect on what the text means.
Hmm.
But I was reading it before I was going to bed, so I didn't pause at any point. I was just reading it.
What
So
is
maybe I
what is
didn't-
that pause symbol? Is that actually like it looks like a music note? Is it like a rest
Yeah,
symbol for
no.
music or something?
There
It
are
looks
like
like the
a-
currency
is
logo
it-
that they use in The
not
Sims for their
really
money. That's what
that.
that looks like.
It's the sim money, the Simonese money,
A simoleon.
simoleons.
It's a Somalian. But the one thing I sort of thought about last night was what was it? He was saying like thoughts make you unhappy or some shit, basically.
Mhm.
Like whenever he woke up in the cold sweat on high off LSD or whatever the fuck he was taking,
Hell yeah.
he felt like at peace or something. It was something to do with he had to cope with the stress. Of
That
his
sounds like
mind.
he had an afterglow.
Yeah. So, all of that to say, I think, and this is, I talked about Falling New Vegas. If you lobotomize yourself, like if you become a lobotomite, you might enjoy your life more.
Free from the burden of
'cause-
the mind.
Yeah, and well, that's a big part of a DLC. But anyways, that was the one thing I thought about was if I was a lobotomite, maybe that would be. I can understand this book, but I took some other notes. Okay, so I'm just gonna read them in order.
I gotta be lobotomized.
I was like, I didn't think it was that bad, or maybe I am lobotomized.
No. Well, just because then you'll have less thoughts. You'll be happier. You'll be at peace. if
I
you-
do. I
You're just
do
reading
look
it like, yeah.
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 No, I think you're right because I see some people out there. They're like, I guess, probably the I don't know if it's like the proper word to call them, but like they're ignorant. Ignorance is bliss. Like they're just
Yeah.
out there laughing and happy, and I'm just like, dude, they're like dumb as fuck,
Mhm.
but they're
True.
happy.
If anyone's
Yeah.
happy, I think they're dumb as fuck as well. Like,
I mean, it's kind of like a kid that like loved
Yeah.
has the best time blowing bubbles, right? You're like, I'm kind of envious of that,
yeah.
Well, I
but
mean,
also not. I don't know.
We will
I mean-
unlock the secret after this book of how to.
True.
I guess
You
that's
know
the,
what?
that's the burden of being smart is you're not happy.
The conclusion, like the end of the last book club for this book, we're just it'll be silent because we'll all be in the now.
True, and
There'll be
viewers will
nothing
simply
to discuss.
understand. Yeah, everything is already
We'll have no more need
like
for
everything you
thoughts.
need to know is within, or some bullshit like that. But I took a bunch of other notes.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say I took a bunch of drugs to understand this book.
No. Honestly, but the LSD though, the LSD, babe.
Maybe.
Okay, I
That
put a
might
s-
take down your ego and you might be able to understand it.
I
Like,
put
I
a
didn't
s-
understand this book at first, but after the fourth line of cocaine, it really started hitting home.
Yeah,
It started resonating with me.
I took some of these notes don't make any sense, so I'll just read them. One of them says microdose LSD for mindfulness. So there's that note.
Wait, wasn't that something from like Atomic Habits, or am I like?
No, that was they were doing it with cocaine addicts. They'd flash it up on the screen for like 3 milliseconds, and even though that they couldn't register or see it, they'd still crave it
Hmm.
because the brain.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I like this book. So yeah, you guys have me to thank for reading this book. I recommended it, and so I because
Hey, is that ego? Is that ego I smell?
Yeah, the whole reason that I recommend it is because I like mindfulness stuff, like thinking and sort of
Mhm.
being grateful. You know what I mean? Just sort of trying to be in the moment and all that jazz. And this book, at least the first part, so far has sort of been reinforcing that, where it's like still your mind and don't judge your thoughts because you are not your mind or some shit. So just you're like an observer basically in your cranium or wherever you are located, you the being. I don't fucking know, but uh, there was one part of like I think you said like it's a good point whenever you like smile at your own thoughts, like you enjoy what your brain is creating or something. Because again,
Oh
it's like
yeah, that's
you're not
like
your thoughts.
yeah, it's
So-
separation of your thoughts from your body.
Yeah, so it's like I guess that was maybe an
Like when you're
incoherent
thinking
point,
of
but
LSD trip and you're like, ha, stupid.
Yeah. Well, they tell that kind of like practice is like in yoga, right? Or like in meditation. Don't they say like you are? They try to tell you like it's not really about like sitting there and thinking no thoughts. It's about like letting them pass and realizing you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
I guess. Like to
Yeah.
just be a mindful observer of them, because I guess they'll
Right.
come and go easier. I guess.
That's my understanding of what meditation is. That you kind of let the thoughts just kind of like pass by, and you don't really like judge them or interact with them.
I'm not gonna lie, like before I did research into meditation and I used to try when I was like way younger, I used to sit there and just like try to not think, and it's like not possible.
Me
It's like
too.
this is stupid.
I
Like
end
how
up
do you
just thinking about like images and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
Well,
I was like,
you
how
also
do you
get
turn
wrapped-
your brain off?
You get wrapped up in like a thought before you even realize the thought started. Like you're already kind of like midway through like a thought and like thinking through it, and you're like, when did this thought even fucking start?
True.
You kind of like
Yeah.
jump into it like part way into
That's
like
when
thought
you need to shut
processing
it down. You're like, when did
Yeah.
this thought start? I can't be thinking of stuff.
Yeah.
And you just stop thinking.
Like this is illegal. I don't have a permit for these thoughts.
I mean, I'm very comforted by the thought that, or by the fact that people say that you are not your thoughts, because I'm like, I guess that's some pretty. There might be a devil living in there. A little bit mean.
There's at least a very angry chimpanzee in there.
Yeah.
clashing two symbols together. What else? I have more notes. Oh, this I don't know what this means. Being equals God, so I have sub notes. Hold on. Something he mentioned something about religions have diluted the meaning of like enlightenment or spiritualism or some shit.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
his thing was basically that like religion has like tried to put a very constrained definition on like God and all those different terms, even though
Yeah.
it's like something. It's something. It's kind of like a when you think of like infinity, it's not something that you can like conceptually grasp. It's like It's like a concept, but like the actual infinity itself isn't something that's like humanly. You can't grasp it with like human intelligence.
I
And
couldn't
so-
even grasp this book.
Yeah, because
Did
he calls them
say-
closed definitions. Wait, what?
Has
You
he
say what?
stated like what? What is God, or is God the being, or
No,
is this some
his-
autotheism? That
Me and God are different, right?
Yeah, they were different, but no, his thing was basically it was kind of like analogous to being. His idea is
Yeah.
that like being should be like an open definition where you can't really put it into words, you can't really make it intelligible, and the same
Can't
thing
label
with like
it, right?
yeah, and the same thing with like God, like you can't God isn't intelligible, and you can't put it into a strict definition and like pigeonhole it to that definition. And so he was like kind of comparing it between those two. He's like, here's a closed definition, which like religions use God to mean a very closed thing, and then being is kind of like a more open definition. It means a lot more. It's like the definition isn't like the words and the definition aren't like the same thing. The definition is kind of gives like a rough approximation of it, but it's something that's not intelligible from a definition or from language at all.
Yeah. And I had a sub note that I think is a quote that says enlightenment is only for Buddha. Something I think that was in the same area where he was talking about different religious beliefs, but I
I
thought that
remember
was
that
interesting
part.
as well.
I remember that part.
Because-
He was saying that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
yeah, he was saying that a lot of people like idolize the Buddha, but they think like Buddha, like the enlightenment is only for Buddha, and they themselves can't
Yeah.
have enlightenment. And
So-
his point was just like you can get enlightenment. You don't have to be the Buddha to get enlightenment.
True. You just gotta read this book. You gotta buy this book and
Buy
read
this
it.
book.
Then you'll
Yeah,
become
and-
enlightened or something.
I do think, you know what, it's interesting too. I think the reason I liked the book and I like certain things resonate with me with the book is because I think what it is like everybody is on their own journey in life, right? So it depends on where you are or how
On
much
the
you've
hero's journey.
experienced, how much LSD you've taken, you know.
I've not enough.
Because you
Never
have to
enough.
have examples to compare it to, right? To like even relate to what he's saying. And you know, me
Yeah.
living in LA, you know, I'm at least 1/4 hippie.
Oh no!
You know, there's a lot of that over here. Hey, we got kombucha at 7-Eleven, okay, baby?
No!
Feeding your microbiome, you know, at 7-Eleven.
Fucking hippies.
Yeah, I
I'm
remember
trying
that.
to. I'm seeking a corporate enlightenment. I'm gonna become.
Corporate life.
I'm gonna become free by owning a McDonald's franchise or something.
You're gonna become free by enslaving others. Got it.
Yes.
My freedom
Okay.
comes at the cost of your freedom.
Yeah. You
That
know
sounds
that's
very
base.
American. No.
I have compulsive thoughts. That was something I think when you guys were talking about having like thoughts that, you know. Oh, well, I guess this is true for everybody, but you sort of get thoughts that you can't control, and not necessarily that are unwelcome, but that just sort of pop up in your mind. So if you practice your mindfulness, you know, and then sort of let them pass and don't get stuck in a like loop of thinking the same useless shit over and over again, and causing undue stress on your mind and body and spirit. You know, that
Right.
we might be better off for it, I guess. Trying
Yeah,
to
having your
be in the
your
moment.
thoughts. Yeah, I like that the way that you put that because it's like basically having your thoughts serve you, not do a disservice to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was my final note, is something he said about, like, not that we don't use the brain or the thoughts, not like thoughts are not useless, but to save them for like important tasks or whatever the fuck, or important thoughts, I guess, was his
Yeah,
point.
the-
It's like,
the-
not, he doesn't want to make you a lobotomite, he wants you just to think about
Yeah,
important stuff.
the
Whatever
two
that means.
the two things he that I picked up on that I remember when he was talking about like thinking and like, you know, chronic or compulsive thinking, is that the first one is that
Chronic
like
thinker.
the thinking has to be balanced. You have to, you know, be able to think and not think. And the second thing is that like thinking is a tool, and just like a tool, you pick it up and use it when you need it and set it down when you don't need it.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
That's true.
I like that.
You said it almost exactly how I wrote it. I think.
So I'm gonna use my tools for evil.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like think about like if you have a hammer and it's like sometimes you need to like nail in some woods, and so like you're using your thoughts, you're using that tool
Yeah.
correctly. And other times you need to like squish a
bludgeon
bug.
people.
No, you need to squish like a bug that's like on your
Okay.
nose or something, and so it's like you're doing harm to yourself with it. So
You don't want to use the hammer.
Yeah, wrong tool for
Yeah.
the wrong situation. So,
Yeah, that was it. That's my thoughts about this book.
All right.
Joseph's turn.
Like I said earlier, I don't have much to say. This book got me frustrated and confused when I was reading it earlier. You probably heard me out here yelling like, "What the hell I just read?" I couldn't understand much of it. The only thing that resonated with me is like what she was talking about earlier was the whole overthinking, how thinking too much can become a disease, like getting caught up in the same thing. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it is like I didn't know what to make of it. I've never read anything like it before, so it's first.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the first of any book can be kind of like if you told me to pick up a book about computers and it said C++
Yeah.
or something like that, I'd be like, what the fuck is that? Like,
It'd make
you
you
got,
gay.
isn't that a bad grade?
Yeah, I just feel like I just feel like this book just smacked me upside the head and I couldn't understand it. That's what I felt like.
You gotta
like
let your
it-
inner
like it-
hippie.
Like
free.
no, the book assaulted me. That's what I feel like.
Thought me with these
Yeah.
hippie ideals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I had to sit there and think about it more. It's like I don't know. Never read anything like it before.
Fair enough.
It was the first time for everything though. So
Oh,
That's true.
I'm gonna use Joseph's lack of things he wants to say to bring up something else that I just thought of, which is, I thought it was interesting that at one point in the book he said he was homeless. He said he was homeless and just like he had nothing, he had no ties at all.
Oh yeah.
And he was like a
And
this
happy.
dude- Yeah, this
Yeah.
dude is like he said he sat on a park bench for like 3 years or some shit.
Yeah. And happy. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, okay, like people are fucking rich and have and all this power and money
they're
and wealth and are
unhappy.
miserable, and this motherfucker sitting on a bench happy as fuck.
He had to be
Yeah.
doing drugs. He
That's
had
what
to
I'm
be high on
saying. He needs to be,
something.
or maybe he is high on his
High on life.
high on the
Power
present
now.
or some shit.
High on,
High
power
on
now.
life.
Yeah.
High on life.
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily wrong. Like you said though, how he words it is maybe not
Yeah.
correct for us Americans over here, but I think
I'm
you
about to
gotta
Google this
practice. Yeah, you gotta give mindfulness a try,
Mhm.
and
I'll still keep reading it. I'm not gonna stop. I'll try to make sense of it.
yeah. You'll get it. You'll get something out of it. You'll either be like, this guy is crazy and he made
That's
this
what I
much
was-
money off of
when-
making a book. I need to write a
Oh,
book, baby.
speaking of crazy, he was talking about at one point like the difference between crazy people and non-crazy people is they speak their voices aloud out in their head, and then we don't. I started laughing at that
Oh
one. Like,
yeah.
I deal with crazy customers all day. We had a dude fucking screaming in a paper bag out in the parking lot, scaring customers off.
Yeah,
so,
that's not
yeah.
the same. I do not have thoughts where I'm screeching into
Right.
paper
Let me
bags.
also
No,
say it's
Sometimes I
normal.
have stuff fly out my mouth when I get pissed off. People act stupid. It just happens.
Sebastian said, "Yeah, I do." Don't rat me out.
Snitch, snitch.
Snitch.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'll just have, I'm gonna have to sit down, like you were saying, read a paragraph and then sit there and think about it.
Yeah.
I didn't retain. It was like it wasn't working.
Okay. Is my turn? Pass.
Yep.
Passy turn. Okay.
Yep.
That's the talking stick.
I think we covered like pretty much most of the book. Or the book. Sorry, the first chapter. The book is over.
Book is
We're done with
done.
it. But
I'm not covering this again.
I think maybe the one thing I wanted to kind of like retouch on that happened in the first chapter. He said that there was like basically two ways, like two methods or like two factors of like reaching enlightenment. And the first one was being mindful of like your thoughts and like your thinking process, and the second one was be like now, be in like the present. So for the second one, when he's talking about like being in the now, basically the method that he listed was you just try to pay attention to everything that's happening currently in the present. So you're not like thinking about like the past or the present or anything like that. You're paying attention to like, you know, the senses and your breathing and like everything around you, and that's how you kind of train yourself to be in the present. Another thing too, that there was definitely a couple. I remember earlier Brett said like the book isn't like very scientific, but there's definitely some things that are like scientific that are like in the book. He doesn't like listing like scientific sources or anything like that, but you know, obviously everyone can relate to the emotions causing physical pain, like those thoughts eventually kind of like building up, being like obsessive, then causing like actual pain. Like that's what like the manifestation of like depression is and stuff. It's like those emotions like build up and they cause like physical symptoms. So those one that definitely happens and has like a scientific basis. But I also think the consciousness thing too, there's kind of like a scientific understanding of that too, where in the learning theory and like current like contemporary learning theory, we have like the two different modes of quote unquote thinking, which is there's diffuse, which is like his equivalent of like the consciousness one, and what was the other one? I think it's like concentrated or something like that. And the idea is that like on the concentrated thinking aspect, it's you're actively like consciously thinking about things, and then the diffuse mode is when you're not actively thinking about things, and then your brain kind of like subconsciously or in the background like solves problems for you. Kind of like when you're not like thinking about something, and all of a sudden, like say if you forget a word and you just have a complete mental block and you can't remember it, like when you're actively trying to search and think for that word, you're in that like concentrated mode of thinking. And then when you stop trying to search for that word and you go back to like a relaxed state and you go to like the diffuse mode of thinking, then all of a sudden that like word you were looking for like reemerges and you refine that word. You're like, oh, it was this word I was looking for. And so
I have that, but for everything.
anything
If I need to remember anything,
I try to remember, I have to stop and then have it surface on its own. But you have a bad like indexing your files.
yeah,
aren't
I can only
indexed
like
correctly.
randomly access knowledge. I can't
Yeah.
like call upon specific knowledge.
Yeah.
I gotta roll the dice to see if I'll
Mhm.
be useful for a
I-
certain situation.
I can't access like specific things in like the data array. It's just all
Yeah.
randomly gather stuff.
Called now that you said that about the two modes of thinking, what is that called when they talk about like kind of like the collective consciousness, like how, because I've heard people saying like, oh, you can access that, right? And
Mhm.
you can know anything you need to know because of the collective consciousness. And to me that sounded like some
hive
far out
mind.
hippie shit, but
Wow,
I mean
wow, wow.
that's like
maybe it's a different mode of thinking, or it's like, I don't know. I just haven't read the book on that yet.
well, he
But
definitely comes
I've
from
heard
he definitely comes from a very Eastern like philosophy sense of like the world and stuff. Like a lot of Eastern philosophy, like Chinese philosophy and stuff like that, is that everything's basically one, and so like there's basically, I guess you could conceptualize it as like a just energy pool. Like everyone belongs to the same like energy source, and life and form, which is the word they use for our body and stuff like that, is, and the mind like makes us discriminate and forget that like we're part of the source and we're all one, and like
right, we're all
beingness-
connected.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
and they have kind of proven this through certain studies, right? Because didn't they like show images or something to different groups of people in different countries, and then they like figured it out all around the same time, or like one
Mhm.
person learned it and then other people had it learned, or there was something about that I read a long time ago.
yeah.
And I know that I'm probably mislabeling that too.
Yeah.
But-
No, I remember seeing something kind of similar, because there's some of those like scientific like phenomenon or like discoveries they have like dual names from like dual scientists, and like sometimes like those like scientific discoveries happen in like completely separate countries where around the same time, where
Mhm.
there's no actual communication between these guys. Like they just came across the same thing around the same time. Like they had the same like thoughts and stuff. So, I'm open to believe that there's like a, I don't know, underlying like human consciousness or something that people kind of like tap into.
Yeah, and I think it's probably good to be open to it. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to believe into it, but it's cool to be open to even think about those things,
Yeah.
Because you're like, that is some sort of weird phenomena going on, and if it's happened on several occasions, like, what is causing that?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a link between that? I mean, I kind of come to believe that I am just a dumb monkey, and I'll never know everything that I want to know. Because especially when you start looking at the planet and how it spins and all the other planets aligned and the moon and the tides and everything, it's almost synchronistically timed together. You know how it just works. The sun rises and sets, and
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if you devote your entire life to like studying and learning something, you'll still like know just next to nothing, like a very small fraction of like what there is to know of everything.
I don't know if it's like comforting or disheartening to know that, or at least I won't be one of those arrogant people that I know everything. I'm always
Yeah.
right. 'Cause
I don't
those
think-
people are.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah,
I
I
think
actually know
yeah, he knows the entire universe. He's unlocked the
Yeah.
power of now, and he's like
Exactly.
he's tapping the
I
source.
just read the last page, and now I'm a
You're
god.
like mind blown.
basically. Yeah,
Mhm.
that like
That's your ego.
that meme of the brain expanding. I'm at the celestial cosmic stage.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
That reminds me, the one of the parts that was interesting to me
This
is that he
literally
was talking about how like creative people don't use like active thinking. They don't like
yeah,
think
it
in
comes
the normal sense.
naturally.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it happens when they're in like a relaxed sense. And when you look at like the history and like the life of like the biographies of like geniuses like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla and people like that, and who was that one artist like Edward Savoldi? I always forget how to pronounce his name, but he's like a artist guy. But they all kind of have like the same different like technique, where what they would do is when they're like working on something that's complex and like a hard problem, they would kind of like relax and kind of like almost fall asleep. Like Thomas Edison, I believe he held like keys in his hands, and so he's working on something hard that he couldn't figure out. He'd hold keys in his hands and he'd kind of lay back in his chair and like relax. And when he falls asleep, his keys would drop and hit the ground, and then he'd wake up and then he'd have like the solution. He'd have like the creative like solution to
Who
the
was
problem
this?
he's stuck on. Thomas Edison, I believe
Oh,
he was
okay.
the one that used like keys, but they all had like similar techniques of like one of them used like I think like a ball, like a metal ball or something like that. So he'd do the same technique, and when he's falling asleep, the ball would hit the ground and make a noise and wake him up too. And then one would use like keys, and they all had like pretty much the same technique. They're like sitting in their chair, they're relaxed, and they're kind of falling asleep. And when they fall asleep, some object hits the floor and wakes them up, and then they get like their creative solution from like that mode being like the
Yeah, they got it from their dreams or something, right?
yeah, something like that.
It might be like a magical moment because I was actually talking to one of my clients about this book, and he said that he saw this guy like do a talk somewhere, and he said that one of the things that stood out to him the most was that I don't know if I'm probably gonna butcher it, but the guy said that the most at peace you usually are or experience is like right before you go to bed. Like that's kind of like where you're just your state of being or oneness is. It's like that's few seconds before you fall asleep. Like you're totally relaxed, you have no problems, and then you fall asleep. So it's like a millisecond. And I guess my client said that he always tries to practice that. Like when he lays down, he tries to, and during the day, he'll try to like relax. So I don't know, maybe there is something about like briefly falling asleep and then those keys dropping that it kind of just triggers something
Yeah.
enlightening in them, or
Yeah,
because that's also a meditation practice to lay down and then have your arm extended up into the sky, so that way if you fall asleep your arm falls and it'll wake you up. So
yeah, I've definitely had a lot of times where like when I'm like thinking about things, I'll be falling asleep, and then I'll maybe be asleep for I don't know like a minute or two, and then like a thought will pop in my head and I'll wake up and I'm like, oh crap, and I go write it down, because whenever I don't write those things down, I usually do forget them. I'll remember in the morning, and then you never remember in the morning. So I
I
thought
know
that
we're
was
so smart and then we forget.
yeah. I just thought that was pretty interesting because I remember reading. I don't know if it was like if it was like actual study or something like that, but they took a bunch of people and they were looking at like creativity, and they found that people who wake up at like weird inconsistent hours and stuff like that were way more creative than people that wake up at like a fixed schedule. So like the people who wake up at like 8 a.m. every single day were less creative than people that wake up kind of like spontaneously. So I found that pretty interesting. And like, tying into this book, the creativity doesn't come from like active like focused thinking. Oh, that's what the term was. For the scientific term between the two different like modes of like thinking and learning, it was focused and diffused. Those were the two. Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. I think that's about it though. I think we covered like pretty much everything in that chapter.
Yeah.
I guess one more thing I want to talk about was kind of like the open and closed definitions. Where the open definition, what he means by that is like it's something that's not intelligible by in words and by language. Like, for example, like love. It's something you experience and you can know once you actually have like love.
Chemical reaction.
But it's not something you define, right? Like you can't define like what love is, and that's what he's kind of like getting at when he means like the term being and the term God. There's something that you can't like fully grasp.
And that's why he doesn't like to use God, right? Because everyone thinks like this long-haired Jesus, or they have like an image and a definition where it kind of like closes your mind to that. Like,
it prevents you like thinking like, oh, what does he mean by these words? But if you've done
what
like,
do you picture when you think of God?
Yeah.
What?
So what do you picture when you think of God?
An old hermit.
Hells yeah.
the old hermit. yeah. It's like, is he white? Is he black? If he made man in his image, does he look like a monk? Like a
I'm
monkey?
just thinking of like
Yeah, I think it's
Vito.
mainly because like religion is so old, and I think the main like way religion survives is that it's pushed on to like children and stuff. Like parents say you have to go to church every Sunday, so you go to church every Sunday. So that kind of thing is like automatically implanted into you, and like as a kid when you're learning, it's really easy to like uh add words to images. So if you see the word orange, it's easy to just put it onto the color orange, so you know it's
Yeah.
orange. So I think that's the way that he's kind of saying it's a closed off thing, because like in religion, like Christianity, you think, oh, an old man with a white beard or some shit, but it's not. It's more open than that. But since people have already had that kind of thing going on for years and years now, hundreds of years now, they have that image of God that is God. It's harder to open your mind up and think maybe God, I don't know, is a woman. Maybe God is a mermaid. I don't know.
Or like, yeah, and what
It-
you're
it's
saying
hard.
is like I notice a lot of bickering will happen between people that kind of have they believe in God, but like it's like, Christian versus like
Yeah.
I-
Like in the book,
They're
they
any
said
gonna
any
my
fight.
sort
God or our
Ex-
Gonna
God.
fight.
Like
exactly.
those,
They go, no,
yeah.
my God, and they have such a close. And I'm like, you guys are talking about the same thing, so you should just
Yeah.
move on. Just leave the definition behind or the image behind, and try to get to what you guys are actually trying to explain. Because it is. I don't think we're. At least I don't feel like I am great at expressing. When I think my thoughts in my head, sound great. When I try to explain them to other people, no, it's just like poo poo that comes out. It's just.
That's the point. That's the point of book club. That's the point of book club. So get better
I
at it.
definitely need practice at that because it's one thing to feel something and to think about it and like to have, I guess, an innate understanding of something, but then to try to explain it to someone else who's had different life experiences or has different, like, I think the ego, like in the way that he's trying to define the ego, like gets in the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta let that shit go.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. Any?
Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good.
Any closing thoughts? Any closing remarks?
I have something weird and wild that you guys might think's crazy or interesting. That's kind of tied to the book in the sense of like, since it's a spiritual book and about finding yourself or being at one. I listened to this talk, by what's the guys with the turbans on the head? That
Speak.
no,
Hmm?
a lot of them do
like Muslim people?
what are they called?
Or sick. Speak. I thought that was the.
You'll see them on
people-
YouTube sometimes. They're kind, yeah, they're like of Indian descent, and they're kind of
Oh.
teaching you how to be
Like-
enlightened or whatever.
Like this guy.
Hindu.
Maybe it's Hinduism or something like that. But the guy was talking. He was giving a talk, and it was saying about because I hate washing dishes, or I used to hate washing dishes, and he said, don't think of it as because it's something you're rushing. I'm trying to get done because I don't want to be doing this. And he said instead, take your time and be in the present and feel the soap go over the dish and rub the sponge over the dish and just
Stab
it was
yourself with the
it was
fork.
like this book. It said be in the moment. Don't think
I
about
know
what you have to do.
I still hate doing
That was
what
dishes.
in
you
this
wanna
book
do.
too. I get that.
Dishes suck.
Yeah, I don't know, but when I listened to the guy talk about it, because then I thought it is stupid to get mad about it when I have to do it anyways, right? Like, unless I'm gonna buy paper
Yeah.
plates and throw that shit away, I have to wash the dishes. And now I also don't let them, like, because of where we live, I don't let them pile up in the kitchen, so it's like way easier. And I actually enjoy it now. Like, it's weird how some reading something or like listening to talk can kind of like just change your perspective a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Because that's all it took for me to like listen to that, and then I went with a different mindset the next time, and then now I'm fine doing it. Like, I don't get mad or anything.
It just sucks when they pile up and then you gotta do them all at once.
Or other people leave them like dirty, and then they're like,
Yeah.
Let's
Who
do
you
that.
Yeah, I know that
snitching
feeling.
on?
Yeah.
Write that down. Write that down.
Well,
Yeah.
I think speech is really interesting because when you talk and stuff like that, you don't talk from like the conscious, you talk
Mhm.
from like the subconscious. And
Yeah.
so like you speaking or being spoken to, it resonates differently like with your mind. Like speech can like touch your subconscious where reading and stuff like that it's more of a conscious activity. It's very difficult for it to kind of like resonate subconsciously unless you kind of like think about it like passively and kind of like in the background, or if you talk about it with other people, which is why I think like a book club is so effective in making making the words more intelligible, because the words are just like these symbols on the page, but when you speak and you talk about it and you try to make it like intelligible speech, like sometimes you'll have like that phenomenon where you'll say something and then it like now it resonates with you, like it now makes sense when you now spoke about it out loud, like you read it and
Yeah,
you kind of remembered it and then you speak it out loud and you're like, oh wow, then like, oh, that's how that works, and it makes sense now when you spoke it. So I think
Which
speech
is-
has like some power to it.
Which is probably like more people need to talk to the old boomers because they think crazy shit and then they tell you crazy shit and you're like, that's crazy. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right, that's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
you can't believe everything you see on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, is that weird though for me to like listen to something like that and then kind of be it had freed
don't
my
think
mind
so.
of that. Yeah.
I mean, I
don't-
play
I don't think I
music and
bought
stuff
into it
if
too
I do
easily.
dishes, mainly because I want to associate something fun to do
Positive.
with something bad. Because I
Yeah.
don't like doing dishes. I don't like the feeling of like the food on the dishes. It's gross. I hate
Oh,
that.
do you wear gloves? I wear gloves.
No,
You gotta get yourself a nice pair of gloves. It'll change.
I use like a brush to take the food off, and then it's nice because then I can
Get
just use
those
the dish
gloves that
soap or
have a
whatever.
brush on the
Oh,
palm or whatever, and then you
True. I heard those
then
are
you can-
actually bad though.
can. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they have
yeah,
a brush on
yeah.
the gloves though. I never seen
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I heard it was bad though because you couldn't like pick up dishes as easily, so it was harder to
I've never
maneuver
tried
with the
using them.
gloves.
I just
I
use
saw reviews.
I
I don't
wear
know
the
what
one
kind of
that's like
water-
it's like a face mask. It has the bristles on the face, and you just rub
What's
your face
that?
on the
Oh, yeah.
dishes.
The Mr.
Oh,
Smiley.
I got like a long
Scrub
scrub
daddy,
brush
bro.
with a
Scrub
handle, so I
daddy.
don't have to
Scrub
touch that food, and it's got a scraper, and I just knock that shit off in the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
Well, I
have
don't know
like a
what kind of
brush.
water you guys got, but we got that nasty, disgusting LA city water that's 300 parts per
Oh.
million. I do not want that shit on my skin.
Yeah.
True.
We got
But-
out here we got well water, so it's hopefully not too bad. But they
I
got a
just-
purification system on it.
I don't do dishes. I just bribe Joseph with energy drinks to do dishes.
Yeah,
That's
energy
it.
drinks more money.
Yeah.
That's a bad habit.
That is a
What do
bad
you mean?
habit.
Need to
He
break
doesn't like
that.
he hates doing dishes. Like if like
No, I don't like going up there because there's people up there when I'm doing dishes.
but you'll even do it when there's nobody here. There'll be nobody upstairs, and you still don't want to do it.
You don't know that. They
You
could be
s-
hiding behind the corner.
Are you telling me you stay in that basement 24/7?
I'm a basement dweller.
Hells yeah.
You need to get an
El
infrared light.
Cablino.
I've been trying to get him out. I got him to go out on a walk at the beach like once.
Yeah.
We went on a walk. That was a while ago, but the
Dude,
weather's
you
been
gotta
shit.
be so vitamin D deficient.
He dragged me
The
out kicking and screaming. I've been
Just
supplementing.
take supplements. Take
Supplements. The supplements aren't as good as getting. the
Yeah,
natural
I
sunlight.
know they're
No,
not
they're
as
better.
good, but
The better.
I don't have anything to do. Maybe
Just take more than prescribed.
You gotta
Man,
be
we-
looking pretty
I
pasty
told
by
you we
now.
can go down the road to the fruit farm and go pick cherries, but you don't even want to do that.
you are a fruit farm.
You're a fruit.
Got him.
Wow.
Got him.
That actually sounds fun. I would do that.
Okay, should I end the book club meeting here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna end it.
Uh oh.
All right, see you
Oh, you made
guys.
him mad.
Bye bye.
Joseph.
You gotta go
Let's
apologize.
go.